Hey everyone. Hey everyone, how's it going? Nice to be here. Should I stand here?
Yeah, that should work. Yeah.
Mic check, mic check. All right, I don't want to deafen anyone. Hey everyone, how's it going? I'll put this here.
You can hold it.
All right, I'm gonna hold it. I'm gonna hold it. First off, thanks to everyone for coming here. It's so cool to see like a full crowd of people interested to learn about this subject matter. I myself am a massive nerd about all things end-to-end automation, and now with all the capabilities of AI on top of that, basically just reducing the friction to people being able to build with that. Before I talk about what's new at end-to-end and a little bit about myself, I do want to just give a big shout out to Amal and the whole team for putting this on. He's been doing a lot of these really high quality, in-depth build sessions. And I think a lot of people do sort of one-on-one stuff, which is great, but it's always nice when someone goes a bit deeper. And with all his engineering experience, I think we can all learn a thing or two. I myself am a script kiddie, and maybe this will be a bit of an inspirational talk as well, because I myself am not a developer. I can code a little bit, but most of the time I'm using AI to help me do things that 5 years ago I would have never imagined I could do. A quick thing about me, I'm Max. Today I'm a DevRel at end. I run on YouTube, and what I try to do is share the stories of all the cool people using end to build really awesome stuff. But my journey at end started as a first product designer, so I was one of the first people that kind of laid out the product that you use today. Now we've got a really smart team, probably a lot of them a lot better than I, at building that, and we're working on a bunch of really cool features. And I basically moved into DevRel because as a product designer, you speak with users, and their stories motivated me so much. I figured, for our growth, for our marketing, for all those things that companies need, it's probably best to just tell the stories of our users. And that's been working pretty well so far. In terms of what we're building right now, we're growing pretty quickly. We had a nice Series B some months ago, but I think a really exciting part about that is all the people that we're adding. Again, people much smarter than I reckon, that we can attract right now. And I wanted to call out a few features that I think are going to be extra interesting for the context of what everyone's working on here. The first one is one that's in alpha right now for some users. It's going to be getting rolled out over the next weeks and months, and that's text to workflow. So that's describing a workflow in plain text and seeing it automatically generated out on the screen. Now, on the alpha right now, it's successful for shorter workflows. They don't have a lot of conditional branching and stuff. I think anyone that's sort of keeping on top of the LLMs sees what happens when the new foundation model comes out, right? You swap Sonnet 3.7 to 4.0, and the efficacy of that goes up a lot. So we're building, assuming that those models are going to get more capable over time. We haven't seen any reason that stops. So that's an alpha, and it's not going to build a whole massive complicated workflow overnight, but we are working on that, and we're showing some success already. So I would keep your ears and eyes peeled for that. Because I think the way we're going to be building it as well is we don't see users describing a whole entire complex workflow in one shot and just clicking run. It's going to be an iterative process. So we still want people to be in the driver's seat there. So everything you're learning today is still going to be super useful, even when that magical moment comes, because then you can look at what the outputs are and see if it's legible and own it and not be beholden to an LLM. A few other things that are really exciting that's coming out, and that's already out, is community nodes. So community nodes is a way for you to submit an integration that works inside of end. We've had that for multiple years, but it was only ever available on our self-hosted version. So you have to go to NPM, know that it's on NPM, go find something and install it. And what we've added now is discoverability for these community nodes inside the nodes panel. So when you open up end and you're searching for a node, those community nodes will show up on there, and they're available on our cloud product as well. I forget what the most recent count is, but I believe there was 100,000 users added in a not very long amount of time recently. So that user base is growing rather massively. There is a small verification check if you do want to submit those nodes to be on cloud, because we want to make sure that no security issues are being pushed to our users. But the reason I bring this up is Some of you might be looking to start a product, start a company that has some sort of tech component in it. It's probably going to be rather useful for someone in an automated context where they can consume it procedurally. And I'm seeing a lot of founders who are shipping their node in end-to-end get amazing distribution from our, I would say, really engaged and thoughtful user base. So if you are going to start a product, or if you maybe work at a product today, do consider building one. Or if you find a use case that we don't have a great integration for, not every node is for an app. It could just be a nice helper node that does a particular type of transform or deals with some weird spec in your vertical that no one else knows about, that we don't know about. You could be the hero in the end-to-end community that goes builds that. So if you're more interested in that, just Google end-to-end community nodes, and I think our SEO is good enough. You're going to see it up there. That's definitely something I would check out. And then the other big feature that is a V1 that just came out, there's definitely a roadmap to evolve there, but that would be evaluations. And before I get into that, show of hands, who knows what an LLM or an AI evaluation is? Raise your hand if you know. Okay, so what it is, it's basically a test. So we're testing our AI agent, our agentic workflow, to see if it's good or not. Why do we need to test it? Unlike traditional engineering things that you will build, let's say with code, LLMs are non-deterministic, right? So in a deterministic system, like in code, an if check, if one equals something, if that works one time, you expect it will always work, unless there's some deeper issue or some system goes down or something. But the logic is deterministic. Every time we click that button, we'll get the same response. LLMs are probabilistic. That means when I click that button, the response you're going to go get back is going to be on a bell curve of answers. Now, on that bell curve, for most use cases, probably somewhere around here on the bell curve is good, here and here is no good. And you're going to get a false sense of confidence if you run that workflow once when you're testing it, you see it get an outcome that you like, and you go ship that. For that same outcome, it might not be successful if you run it that nth time. And then for a different case, a different number, a different input, you might also not get a successful outcome. So evaluations is kind of the framework you put around that for testing it. And we've added that inside of end-to-end today. The reason I would call that out is there's a lot of work for us to do on that feature, I think, in terms of maturity. And also a lot for all of us to do in understanding how to evaluate something. So for example, if I'm evaluating a text output, let's say we're evaluating an answer to a customer, well, what does good look like? It has to be polite, it has to be accurate. These are all evaluating text qualitatively. And a lot of people actually use LLMs to do that evaluation step of those outputs. It's called LLM as judge. Other times you might have a very simple function that checks, okay, for these 10 test cases, it should be true. We know that because we ran it manually. So then you're just checking if that output was true. So that's a lot simpler. But there's going to be these different strategies that you want to apply to your use case as you're building it. So I think today you're all going to be building, you're all going to be learning how to build that actual workflow. And I think that should definitely be your focus. Go build that. But before you go launch something into production, and it doesn't even have to be for your employer, if you have some Slack bot that you're relying on that's also production, before you go rely on that thing, I strongly encourage everyone sets up evaluations around that, and not just for that use case, but so that you're building the muscles and the skill set around evaluating things. Because I think over the next couple of years, the LMs will get better, they will hallucinate less, and maybe for some very simple use cases, you might not need that. But the more and more that we trust these systems, the more and more we'll apply them to valuable problems to solve. And valuable problems to solve, usually the failure rate is less tolerable, right? If you start working on health stuff or critical things in your business, it's so important that whoever builds that can go to their boss or their customer and say, this is going to work, or this is going to work 99.3% of the time, which meets your requirement. So if you're selling automation, or if you're selling a solution to a customer, or you're building something that you rely on, we will all need evaluations in some way. On some consumer tools, there'll be product teams that probably reduce that friction. We don't have to build that. But I personally strongly believe that everyone that knows how to evaluate their own AI outputs is going to be in a much better position, especially when it comes to the job market in the next years and stuff. It's going to be such an important component of working with AI, and that's the reason why we're sort of shipping that into n8n, so it becomes a native sort of first party of the building experience. Again, it's a V1 that's come out. I strongly recommend you guys to check it out. If you're not seeing an evaluations tab in your n8n workflow, do make sure to update your n8n instance. The team's growing, we're over 100 people, so there's a lot of cool stuff coming out every week. So I do recommend you be checking our changelog frequently and updating frequently for that feature and all the other awesomeness that's coming out. But I strongly recommend that you guys wrap your head around that because I myself, for example, am not an expert on evaluations. I'm learning as well. I think a lot of us at n8n on our own workflows are also learning. So it's very early days for most of the world when even thinking about how to evaluate the outputs of these things. So you'll all be in a better position, whatever you're building with AI, if you know what good looks like and how, like once you've made a first version, how to iterate on that good. I think anyone here that's worked with AI prompting knows that a single word could change those outputs. That's probably pretty stressful, right? When you're in that prompting and you're building that. And we realize that and we're shipping that. So yeah, check that out. Check out all the other cool features that have come out in the last months that will be coming out in the future months. And again, big shout out to Amal and everyone here for what you're doing, sharing the good word to the people. I think in person is a really great way to absorb this and build a bit of a community. There's a lot of other exciting, interesting builders in the room today that came in their free time to learn something. So connect with them as well. Because community at n8n is super important. It's part of the reason I'm here, to show that we care about our local community. So thank you to each and every one of you for being here today and like taking a step for yourself to like enrich yourself and give yourself a skill set to go build whatever it is that you imagine. Thanks, everyone. Shall we do some jokes meanwhile, Emil? Or? An n8n joke, goodness. 5 years from now, people will still be referencing that. Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the night. We'll fix this in post.
Thank you.
It's part of the joke.
Hello, hello. Yes. I'm out. How did you put?
You need to push it a little bit.
Hello, hello. Can you hear me? Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm gonna send you a new one. I just realized it's off.
Did you send it?
I just sent you
Sorry.
some. Shares.
Okay, I did. Hi, everyone. Hear me? Good. So what about now? Yeah, still? Okay. All right. So hi again. My name is Joanna Stoffrigen, and I am a product manager for, I would say, the past 10 years. And I have been basically building products in different industries like medtech, e-commerce, fintech. And for the past 2 years, I run basically Labs.ai, which is an AI development company that we build basically agents with workflow automations up to basically full-fledged products. And I would say basically for the past 2 years, we have been worked on around 15 to 20 different products, ranging,
ranging, I would say, from
smaller
smaller scale
scale
automations,
automations,
that will
a week
take
to
a week
develop
to
up to
develop, up
basically
to basically
full-fledged
full-fledged
products that
products
take
that take
months
months to develop.
And we did
And
a
we
lot
did
of
a lot
learnings
of learnings
from these
from these 2 years, working, from
middle-sized
middle-sized
companies
companies up to enterprise. And today, I actually wanted to share these learnings with you and some best practices, or essentially how to build AI agents and make them for production.
So this is not,
So this is not, I would say, just for AI agents, but it's actually in general how to build generative AI solutions for production.
So
doing,
let's say our
let's say, our
learnings,
learnings,
working
working basically with
all these
all these companies and building products.
I would say
the most common.
Can you hear me still?
Can you hear me
Yes,
still?
right?
I guess, right? Because it's
going
still
on.
going on.
It's fine, huh?
It's
Okay.
fine, huh? Okay.
So I would say
So I would say that the most common reasons why I would say agents and AI solutions fail,
I
I would say in between these four reasons
So
here.
business.
So first, business
They're
issues.
poor
They're
bus-
poor,
good-
bus-
poor
good-
business
poor
problem
business problem
definition.
definition.
So the technology
Basically, or the AI solution has been
that
built
does
that does not deliver the business value or essentially ROI that it should deliver.
A
A lot of companies
focus
focus
on,
on, we need AI,
focusing on
so they're focusing on
technology,
technology, but they don't take into account actually the business or the user
needs.
needs. Data issues. So, you might see a lot of this
beautiful
beautiful tutorials on YouTube that have clean data, everything works, but actually when you do a real work with real clients, you will see that the data, they don't have clean data, you might wait, they don't have, databases, pipelines and all of that. So it makes the whole basically data scoping very, very difficult. Insufficient data, not good quality data, which essentially breaks the whole thing in production.
Lack of observability.
Basically, they build AI solutions, but they don't have any clue what is the agent doing. There's no evaluation strategy. So Max was talking before about evaluations. Very, very important. We will get actually into it as well in a bit.
And of course,
Infrastructure and scalability issues. So we see companies that don't even have infrastructure to actually integrate this AI solutions in their own infrastructure, and not enough basically AI expertise that can basically build and integrate those solutions in the AI infrastructure. And we see basically also these very common problems in production that you might be also that you might have also encountered, like agents hallucinate. There is context drift. They did not retrieve the right context. The AI agent calling basically the wrong tools. There's no or a very poor edge case handling, and of course high cost per token. So you might build a solution, but then when it goes into production, you might see basically that it's very costly. And of course, when you deploy solutions into production, you have real users that break the system, basically use the system in a ways that you don't even actually know how they will use it. So all of that, very common problems. And we actually saw that I would say most failures actually come from poor planning and not poor tech, right? So AI agents fail in the real world because there's no structured guidance, monitoring, and basically strategy to iterate on that. So I have now some eight best practices that I will talk about them now. So basically, while you learn how to build AI agents, AI solutions, also please take into account what we will be discussing now. So best practice number one, frame the problem first. Very, very important that you need to understand basically when you're building an AI agent or an AI solution, you need to understand the business and the user problem that you're solving, right? Because if you don't understand that, you cannot build the right solution. So I would suggest involve the domain experts from the beginning. They are the domain experts. They know about their processes. They know about edge cases, use cases and stuff, let them define the rules, the constraints, and let them basically instruct how they imagine basically the AI agents to work. When you build the agent, define clear objectives and roles for your agent. So be explicit about what the agent should and shouldn't do. So we call them jobs to be done. Basically, so let's say, for example, you build a customer support agent. Instead of building one agent that does everything, build multiple ones that have basically different roles. So best practice number 2, know when to use an AI agent and when not. So I would say a lot of actually the solutions that we also work on, they don't even need AI agents. AI workflows is fine. AI agents, yeah, we use them, but a lot of them actually, if you can actually build the solution without using AI agents, why to basically make it more complicated, right? So understand your data and make sure that basically you're building the simplest solution to solve the problem that you have on hand to solve. So this is the differences between basically an automation, an AI workflow, and an AI agent. So as you can see in the automation, it's basically pretty deterministic, or you have basically data like tabular structured data that on form submission, you know, whenever, let's say you have a customer coming on your website, submit a form, I want this data to be sent, to be saved in Airtable, okay? This, you don't need AI, it's a simple automation, okay? So you use simple automation when you have high repetitive tasks and rules and logic that is not basically changing. And on scenarios, basically, and the data should be basically structured, clean, and predictable. Yeah, AI workflows is basically when, let's say, you have an LLM without actually using any tools or basically memory, and you have the output of one LLM, and you give it as an input to essentially the other LLM. This basically is a workflow, so you don't use any memory or basically tools for AI agents. This is basically a semi-flexible flow, so it can handle semi-structured, basically unstructured data. And then we have the AI agent, basically that it's an agent that has memory and uses different tools. You use it basically when you want to delegate outcomes and not steps. The tasks are dynamic, and you want basically the AI to reason, plan, and adapt based on context. And basically, you have basically unstructured data. So yeah, make sure that you understand the difference between this automation and workflows and AI agents, so you can basically plan your AI solutions. Best practice number 3, learn how to prompt for agents. You might be thinking that it's like, what is she saying now? I need to learn to prompt, but yes. So you can imagine that basically with how many developers, amazing AI engineers we work with, they do amazing development, but they don't know how to prompt basically for agentic workflows or basically AI solutions. Honestly, the best prompters are the domain experts. Yeah. So make sure that you know how to prompt for AI workflows. When you prompt for AI agents, you need to have a clear prompt instructions on when the agent needs to use each tool. Best practice number 4, understand different AI agents architectures. Okay, so as you know, there are many different architectures, and it will be great, and it's used basically in different purposes. So make sure that you understand them. So here you can see an AI agent which essentially uses a tool. So based on the message that it receives, it knows which tool to trigger. Then we have an AI agent that it's mixing tools with MCP servers. So basically, you have the initialized by another app through a webhook with an MCP server, let's say for Atlassian, and ready to go use tools for other interactions. So this is basically an agent architecture that uses MCP servers. Then we have agentic workflow with a router. So basically, it's just a fancy name for a condition. So if basically you have the output of the agent, and then you route it to different results. Agent architecture number 4, AI agent with a human in the loop. So basically, when you need a human to correct or confirm, basically the output. And an agent that dynamically calls another agent. So yeah, you could actually have many agents that calls each other, depends on what is the use case. So you can actually read more about that. There's this article here. I can also share my screens that they go in much more deeper analysis, and I will highly suggest to read more about basically the different AI agents architectures. So best practice number 5. You probably saw a lot of like spaghetti notes. Please don't do that. This is very difficult to maintain, very difficult when you basically work with clients. There's no documentation, nothing. It's like chaos, madness. Don't do that, you know. So don't have one agent handling full workflows in one go. Use basically sub-agents to handle different responsibilities. Give small tasks to small models. Use basically smarter models for more complicated stuff. And this essentially will help you balance the speed, cost, and of course the quality of your results. Best practice number 5. Was it number 5 before? Yeah, sorry. Okay. Number 6. Employ observability. So this is without observability, basically you don't know what's happening with your agent. So you need to understand what the agent is thinking, and you need to trace each basically step. So you need to trace the prompt, the model responses, what tools does it call, and of course the errors. I also suggest we use Langsmith for that, so I can actually show you how it looks. Wait. So basically here you can actually see one query, and then you can trace it basically what happens in each query. So here you will see that basically it's called the web search tool. You can trace everything essentially, what the input was of the user, what the output was of the user. So please make sure that you employ observability in your agents. Best practice number 6, actually 7, employee evaluation. So Marx was actually talking about evaluation, and yes, very important to actually evaluate what the AI agent is doing. So first, define evaluation objectives. So what does success looks like for your AI agents? What failures are unacceptable, and what rules or behaviors must always be followed? Okay, so for example, you're building a customer support agent. It must answer billing questions from FAQ. It must escalate technical issues, and it should never include basically CRM IDs or personal information. So this is actually at the constraints, right? So if you can't write this down in plain language, your team or basically anyone cannot actually evaluate it. And Max, again, he talked about the NDN features. So I will I will show it to you how they employ it, how you can actually do that on an NDN. If this thing starts, 1 minute. I can't click it.
Evaluation is a great way of getting confidence in your.
Do you hear?
It's essentially a form of testing, and it's the technique that helps you move from an impressive proof of concept to a solid production-ready workflow. In fact, it's pretty much essential to do anything reliable with AI, and if you don't believe me, take these guys' word for it. Anthropic calls it the crucial secret behind good prompting, and Vercel goes as far as to say your prompt is broken if it doesn't have evaluations. It's important because LLMs can't be reasoned about like code can, so they have to be measured instead. Evaluation provides a way of doing that measurement. In evaluation, you run a test data set through your workflow to see how it performs on a range of different inputs. So let's look at an example. Here, I am building a workflow for classifying support tickets. It takes an incoming ticket in the format of a subject and a body, and using AI, it calculates a category and a priority. I've got it working end to end, and now I want to get a sense of how reliable it is. This Google Sheet has test data that I can use for that. A handful of support questions ready for classification, and I've also added in what the correct answers are by hand. By running them through my workflow, I can get a sense of where things are going wrong and get ideas for improvements. So I've added a trigger here that will read in the rows from the dataset and a set outputs node that will write the results back to that dataset. And you can see that it's running multiple times in a row, once for each row in my dataset. And we can see the results coming in here. The red cells are where the AI got it wrong. And I can look at these to get a sense of where I need to improve things. After I've made my changes, I can try again and I can see what's changed. Once my dataset starts getting bigger, I'll need a way of measuring performance, not just eyeballing it. And that's where metrics come in. Metrics are essentially a score that measures the quality of the workflow. Metrics can be code-based or can use AI to judge performance. So here, I've got a very simple metric. I am just comparing the expected priority from my Google Sheet with the actual priority that's been output by the workflow and doing the same for the category. But you can also calculate lots of metrics like correctness or document RAG relevance with this feature. I can use the evaluations tab to run my evaluation. And once it's finished, I can see a roll-up of my metrics over all my inputs, as well as results for individual rows. I can also see how those metrics have evolved over time as I have worked on my workflow. So in summary, you should use evaluation when building your workflow to get an idea of how it performs over a handful of different cases. When deploying to production, to check that the edge cases you know about are covered, and when making changes, to check that you haven't accidentally broken anything. It's a feature we're very excited about, and I hope you find it useful.
This is actually the new feature that they released.
So
So back to the presentation. Okay, so how actually to execute that? So you would need to start basically with human review evaluation. So let's say you're building a customer support agent. So first you need actually a test data set, right? So in that occasion, you need to have around 50 to 100 realistic user questions to cover all major scenarios and features. It should be basically a mix of easy wins and of course edge cases. You need to also have the edge cases. And how to generate these test questions? You could actually generate them by using an LLM. So let's say you could ask it, generate 50 customer support questions for a telecom company. 50 customer support questions a telecom company receives, or better, basically to mine, to use basically real user data, right? What are your customers asking for? And you could actually ask your team or customer service for the common basically questions that the user answer. So here you will have an example data set. So you could really start with a spreadsheet, you know. So you will have basically the category of the question and the test question. So for instance, this is the category billing. Why is my bill 200 this month? So let's say user asks the AI agent this question. What is the expected behavior? So basically what as you the builder basically expect the AI agent to give us output when the user asks this question. So you need actually, when you have this 50 to 100 questions, you need to write also to understand what will be the expected behavior of your agent. So once you have that, you actually test it with your agent, obviously before also going to production. And then you need to run human evaluations, basically to understand what was the user request, what was the agent's response, did the agent use the right tools, what was the user feedback to the agent response. And again, you should have basically like a spreadsheet, simple stuff, you know. So you have the test question, you have here the AI response. So for instance, test question, why is my bill 200? The AI responded, your bill is high because you used extra data. So the context that the AI agent used actually to answer this question, it was basically the plan, the customer plan. And this was wrong. It was wrong information. So this you also write how to fix it, right? So you basically, it's very important that you test basically this scenarios with your agent, obviously before you go to production. But also when you go to the production, it's like a continuous evaluation. Then you have the model-based evaluation. So obviously you need to scale that, right? You need to scale the evaluation. So first, how you will start with that? You need to first of all use a very strong model for that. Don't use the cheapest, like the weakest model, but you need to actually use a strong model to grade the AI outputs for that, and train it to think like a human. So basically, we need probably the results to be more than 80%. That the human grade is actually the model grade of the output. It's kind of like on good as a human will grade. So for instance, here you will have a user query, my order is late. What did the AI responded? I'll check that right now. Here's the tracking. So then a human evaluates that. Okay, it's a good response. The model, you give the same basically answer, the same basically query to the model to evaluate it. You see basically what it answered, and you grade it. You need actually to make the model explain why it graded it good, and basically you need to see the agreement. Did it match? Did the human and the LLM did the match in the evaluation? So then you basically will have a very good understanding how your LLM as a judge is. And very important to have metrics to track. So you really absolutely need to track the cost per run. So you understand basically what does it cost each time basically the agent runs. User signals. So basically, this thumbs up, thumbs down, implement that. Very good for user feedback. So you understand basically how your users perceive the product. The accuracy, basically, was the output accurate and so on. And of course, you also need to set out automated safeguards like guardrails, and use frameworks like RAGs if you use basically RAG. And here basically is the evaluation cycle, that it should be essentially continuous. So basically here you have the LLM invocation. So you need to have basically unit tests to test, and of course the observability where you would log traces. And then basically you have all that, and then you have the evaluations, as we mentioned before, the human review, the model review. You should also have at some point also A/B testing. And the data from the evaluation, the results from the evaluation basically should be used to fine-tune and curate basically the data set to give back to the model, and of course also improve your prompts. And that whole basically process obviously improve the model. And as I said, this should be continuous. It should never, it should be a strategy to have this evaluation cycle when you build AI solutions and AI agents. Again, very good resources is this link here. He explains it in much more also technical way on how to implement that. So as I said, I can share my slides afterwards. Best practice number, say, design for robustness. Okay, so you need to simulate edge cases. Very important to simulate edge cases. So don't assume that always the users will be nice. And before going to production, try really breaking your AI agent or AI solution. Have fallback mechanisms. So basically, the AI agents sometimes don't know what to say, but they anyway say it and it's wrong. So basically, don't let it tell whatever it wants. You should basically, implement like mechanism, but it should say, sorry, I don't know, or use default responses, or basically escalate to human. Guardrails, very important, keep it safe. validate and sanitize inputs. Your agent should not actually expose personal information or things that it should not expose. Add rules and do sanity checks actually before reaching the use cases. And of course, design a system that keeps working even when parts are broken. So you might have like a whole workflow and something breaks and the whole system breaks. You need to basically have a way basically how the agent restarts and retries so the system is continuously essentially working. Last but not least, design for cost efficiency. Okay, so yes, LLM costs are going down. They're basically really down since actually last year, almost probably more than 100% now. But still, we are using agents that have a lot of queries, a lot of basically invocations, and the cost you need to track basically. You need to make it cost efficient. You know, so you build a prototype, but then basically you deploy it into production, and suddenly I don't know 20 users are using it, and then basically you see it's basically not cost effective. So how to fix that? Cache common responses, very easy. So if there's common responses, just cache them. Use smaller models when possible. You don't need to use large, expensive models for most of the tasks. Just use smaller models. They're much cheaper. And of course, use a rooted model. So basically, you can have a smaller model, evaluate the if the user query should be going to a smarter model. If not, use the smaller model. So this is like techniques, you know, to build cost-efficient AI agents. Recap, best practices, frame the problem, understand a user and business problem, know when to use an AI agent and know when not to use it, learn how to prompt for AI agents, understand the different AI agents architectures and when to basically use each of them, employ observability, employ ongoing evaluations, have basically a strategy to evaluate your agents, design for robustness and safety, and design for cost efficiency. So that's all from my side. Yes, if you guys want to connect with me, we are also planning to host more events like this, and we're always looking for speakers, collaborators, venues, and so on. So feel free to reach out to me. And thanks a lot. Now. Okay. Back to you.
All right, guys, if you can hear me, people live. There's a small technical problem, so I'm gonna go offline, and I'll be back. Don't leave, okay? You will find the link in like 2 minutes, just like literally 2 minutes. Don't go away. Can you, John, can you put this down? Touch me. Yes, sir. And still your life. I'm gonna go offline now.